Preparing for 2012. Part 2. Our world's present state. Before explaining how to prepare ourselves for the year 2012, we need to provide some information on the condition of world today and how it has reached that state. After that, a brief introduction to the expected events shall follow. Our world today is driven by some primary and insatiable needs of humanity, the need to quench our hunger and thirst and a shelter to protect us from the elements. These basic needs have led to the formation of civilizations, industry and commerce. In an increasingly populous world with dwindling resources, survival has become very competitive. The advancement of civilization has created more problems like spread of disease, crime, etc., which has led to the creation of more industry. Once the immediate need for food and other basic requirements are fulfilled, there is the concern for tomorrow's plate of meal. This concern leads to feeling of insecurity, which in turn leads to competition and hoarding. The feeling of insecurity is based in fear. Such insecurity leads to unfair competition and rat race. This can be seen at the level of the individuals, between organizations and between organizations and between states and countries. Even after earning enough money, there's no satisfaction or contentment. There is always the desire to earn more, own more and consume more. While in the process of earning more, many become unscrupulous and corrupt. Initially, only those in power like politicians and bureaucrats were corrupt. But nowadays, even the common man has the tendency to be corrupt, given a chance. The percentage of those who are corrupt in almost all fields. There are many who are honest and refuse to be corrupt, but the general trend is, most people are willing to commit crimes as long as there are no dire consequences. The birth of civilization. When mankind was primitive and uncivilized, humans lived in small groups in nature and the earth was in its pristine condition. Each family had to meet its food requirements through hunting and gathering in the wild. As man became more intelligent, these groups grew larger and led to the formation of villages and thereby, civilizations. The need for food grew larger and man had to discover ways of growing food and storing it. With further advancement of civilization, the villages become cities with people having various types of occupations. To meet the food requirements, the food industry took birth, which had the responsibility of supplying food to everyone. Soon, there was a huge food industry, which had to transport food from the farmers to the consumers, and it had to address the problem of preservation of food during transportation and storage. The industry had to invent ways and means to preserve the food for long periods. So, the packaging and food processing industry was born. Many chemicals had to be invented and added to the food as preservatives to enable transportation and storage. The farmers also needed larger yields from their agriculture to meet the growing demand. So, chemical fertilizers were invented. Then came the problem of insects, which led to the creation of pesticides. So, the food we consume today is full of chemicals in the form of preservatives, fertilizers and pesticides. Even those packaged foods that claim to have no preservatives are treated with such processes as pasteurization, homogenization and flash heating etc., that their contents become so lifeless that they do not get spilt, but they are not fit for consumption. To add to this, there are genetically modified fruits and vegetables that do not get spoiled for months, with unknown consequences on our health. Most of the world's population today lives in cities. Almost all the food is processed and is full of so many chemicals that their regular consumption naturally leads to deadly diseases such as diabetes, heart diseases, cancer and many other chronic diseases. Added to this is the stress of competition combined with the sedentary life in this civilized world that reduces our immunity and makes us more vulnerable. This has led to the massive growth of the medical industry, which further adds chemicals to our diet in the form of drugs. Statistics show that the number of deaths due to chronic diseases has steadily increased over the years in spite of all the research done in the field of medicine, clearly indicating that the medical industry is unable to cure any diseases. One study showed that when terminal cancer patients were allowed to live without consuming drugs, they felt far better than the group that was put on chemotherapy. In fact, the drugs used in chemotherapy are so deadly that usually kill the patient before the cancer does. So, what began as growth and development of our civilization has led to a world full of suffering caused by competition, stress, illness and unhappiness. When man was primitive, he lived a much healthier and happier life close to nature. Today, the majority of the wealth is controlled by a handful of people and governments. They also control the media and all the major policies of the world. For instance, the reckless use of fossil fuel has led to global warming, which gives rise to a chain of global changes that destroy the environment. But the governments are not making any effort to find alternative fuels because the few who own the oil fields prefer to continue to profit from the environment damage. Since the governments are funded by the corporates, they are forced to make policies to the latter's advantage. When we look at all the problems of our world today, we begin to wonder whether there will ever be a time when everyone in the world is healthy and happy, with no competition, greed or war. We begin to ask fundamental questions like, does God exist? And if so, why does He allow evil to exist on this earth? Do we have individual and collective destinies, or do we go on living aimlessly? Why are we here? What will happen after we die? Do we cease to exist, or do we survive bodily death? If we survive, then where do we go? There are clear and definite answers to all these questions. For instance, there is enough evidence to prove that reincarnation is true. There are many instances where individuals have remembered having lived in a different body. This goes on to show that we survive bodily death. This implies that we are more than body. The ancient masters, who were capable of knowing the truth directly, explained that we are souls and live in these lives on this earth. This also implies that we are visitors here. We are souls, capable of thinking, feeling and emoting. We are capable of manifesting infinite love and compassion. We have the free will and, therefore, we are also capable of causing harm to others, being insensitive, jealous, hateful, etc. In other words, we are capable of being both good and evil. It is a matter of choice, and if we want, we can choose to be good always. The majority of the people of this world today are choosing evil, either directly or indirectly. Such personal choices by the majority can have global effects. Continued in Part 3. Thank you.